You're a transfer student. The school's resident bad boy can't stand. Yet right under his nose, you almost end up playing a kissing game with someone else. Even when he guns his bike and drags you out of the club, he does it in this almost threatening tone, like he's staking a claim. You keep fighting against this sudden possessiveness. But when you see him show up in the pouring rain just to bring you brown sugar ginger tea, it's the first time your heartbeat ever spins out of control. The school bully has always been impatient with me, until that one time during a round of truth or dare when I drew the dare to kiss another boy. Before I could refuse, he slipped out of the shadows, voice low and icy. I've been waiting on you all this time, and you're telling me you ran off into someone else's arms? It was my first time at a club. After everyone took turns wishing Tony a happy birthday, they started playing truth or dare. When the bottle spun to Tony, someone started yelling for the birthday boy to pick a dare. He gave a helpless little smile and agreed. Share a long biscuit with the girl on your left. Whatever's left can't be longer than 1 centimeter. The room exploded. I froze, because I was the girl on his left. With this game, one careless move, and it's lips on lips. The hooting around us just kept getting louder. I looked at Tony, hoping he'd back me up and refuse too. But the way he stared at me, like he wanted to say something but didn't, left me completely at a loss. I pressed my lips together. I'm sorry. I just opened my mouth when the sound of the door slamming cut me off. Jason swept a cold glance over the room, and his gaze finally locked on my face. There was a smile on his lips, but his eyes were icy. Having fun, huh? Jason was always like this. Ever since I moved into his house, he'd barely given me a decent look. When my dad brought me to Leeson City for school, we happened to run into Jason's mum. She and my mum were childhood friends and incredibly close. When she found out Jason and I went to the same school, she flat out insisted I move in with them. It wasn't until I was standing in front of their villa that it really hit me his family was loaded. But Jason himself almost never bothered with me. After a few times of me trying to talk to him and getting nothing but an impatient face, I stopped throwing myself at that brick wall. Lately, though, something's been off. He's suddenly gotten very nosy. Even when he's the one to start talking, he's still acting like he's doing me some huge favor. His change seemed to start right after Tony transferred here. That afternoon after school, Tony and I got so wrapped up in a problem that we lost track of time. Until someone knocked on the classroom door a few times. Tony and I both stopped and looked up. Jason was leaning against the doorframe, expression blank, staring straight at me. Then he jerked his chin toward the clock hanging at the back. Take a look at what time it is. I glanced up immediately. It was already 45 minutes past the usual end of school. The Smith's driver picks both of us up, which meant Jason had clearly gotten tired of waiting and come up to get me himself. I jumped up to pack my things. Your friend? Tony set his pen down, looked Jason over, then turned to me. I pressed my lips together, suddenly not sure how to explain. While I was still hesitating, Jason cut in. He lounged there with his arms folded, leaning on the doorframe, a lazy, almost smile on his face. She lives with me. It was a sentence that didn't explain anything and said way too much. It sounded almost provocative to me, but Tony didn't think anything of it. His shoulders relaxed. So, he's your brother, I mumbled. Something like that. Slung my backpack on and said goodbye before leaving. Jason's fingertips tapped idly on the center armrest in the back seat. All of a sudden, he let out a short laugh. Since when did I get a random little sister, huh? I stared into those cold eyes and stammered an explanation. I just didn't want him to get the wrong idea. He only gave a soft, derisive snort. Didn't realize you were into that type. I was completely lost, no idea what that out-of-nowhere comment was supposed to mean. I was about to ask when he shut his eyes, whole body saying, "Don't talk to me." For days after that, Jason's expression stayed dark. I was a little scared of him like that, and talked to him even less. One morning when we got to school, I had just reached for the door when he stopped me. "Come out on time after school. Don't make me come in and drag you out again." I nodded. Then he called me back again. "Something else?" I turned to look at him. He stared at me for 2 seconds. "At your age, dating's still a little too early." He paused. "Focus on your studies." Got it. Dazed. I nodded again. What was with these random comments lately? Why bring up dating out of nowhere? This from the guy who's always at the bottom of the grade rankings, whose textbooks look fresher than his face, and he suddenly discovered the importance of studying? But Jason's changes didn't stop there. I'd only ever heard the rumors about him fighting and street racing, earning him the school bully label behind his back. After all, he'd never actually lost his temper in front of me, which is why that night was the first time I saw Jason radiating pure menace. You don't have to wait for me after school today. You guys go ahead without me. I told Jason Friday morning in the car, on the way to school. Reason? It's Tony's birthday tonight. He invited us out. Where? His tone was casual, like he was just making small talk. I thought back. Higher club. Jason didn't say anything else. He looked the same as always. When he asked, it honestly never crossed my mind that he'd show up. Having fun, huh? His voice was low and sinister. The guy who'd been leading the chanting earlier shrank back the instant he saw Jason and shut his mouth. Tony, though, spoke up first. You're Isabel's brother, right? Come sit with us. Join the game. Jason lifted his eyes to him and gave a cold little laugh. Brother my ass. Hey, why talk about yourself like that? Tony objected. Tony really had zero sense of self-preservation. Couldn't he see Jason was practically radiating frost? Jason strolled over, a cigarette pinched between his fingers. From above, he looked down at Tony. Buddy, you playing dumb with me on purpose? The air went tight. For some reason, I had this vivid image of him grabbing a beer bottle and smashing it over Tony's head the next second. I shot to my feet and walked over to Jason. I want to go home. His gaze slid slowly from Tony's face to mine. In the next second, his arm snapped around my waist. Before I could even say goodbye, he'd already steered me out in that suggestive hold under everyone's eyes. Jason, pull over. You're driving too fast. Let me off. Jason acted like he couldn't hear me. The second we came out of the club, he'd shoved me onto his racing bike, strapped his helmet on my head, and took off like a rocket. I was terrified and could only cling to his waist for dear life. I had no idea how long we rode before he finally stopped. I climbed off quietly and stood to the side. Jason looked at me, face unreadable. If I'd shown up a little later, you really would have gone ahead with that bullshit game with him, huh? I said nothing. He walked straight over and took off my helmet. You forget how to talk now. The last word cut off mid-syllable. Why are you crying? Jason's brows drew together. I just stood there sobbing, legs like jelly, too weak to take a single step. Before I could sink to the ground, Jason scooped me up and set me down on a half-height concrete ledge nearby. I scared you, didn't I? The stormy look he'd had just moments ago vanished into something close to panic. Hiccuping through my tears, I kept pounding on him with my fists. I was scared to death. And you still wouldn't stop. Sorry. I didn't hear you. He let me hit him as much as I wanted. Jason pulled off his leather gloves and leaned in. He lifted a hand to wipe away my tears. I thought you were about to kiss him, and it pissed me off so bad I saw red. I froze, forgetting to cry. When he finished wiping my cheeks, his hand still didn't drop. His fingers traced along the side of my face, and the distance between us kept shrinking. Belle, he said my name in a low voice. I answered before I could stop myself. There was something unfamiliar in his eyes, an emotion I'd never seen there before. Be good for me, okay? I had just opened my mouth to reply when Jason's hand clamped gently on my chin, and he leaned in to kiss me. Everything around us went so quiet, it felt like time had stopped, except for the dead leaves at our feet rustling in the wind. The second Jason's lips brushed mine, I turned my head away. What are you doing? My voice was shaking. Jason let go of my chin, but he was still way too close. The air between us thick with something electric. His dark eyes locked onto mine. He murmured back, "What do you think?" My mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. Now that you've got the idea, I'll spell the rest out for you. Stay away from Tony from now on, Isabel. You know what I mean. Back then, I didn't hear the genuine, clumsy love buried in his threatening words. All I felt was how suffocating that possessiveness was. My resistance to him shot through the roof. So later, when he came back drenched to the skin from the rain because he'd gone out to buy me brown sugar ginger tea, I still ignored him. Things between Jason and me turned complicated. Or maybe I was the only one being awkward. To avoid him, I started getting up half an hour earlier, stopped taking the Smith's car, and took the bus to school on my own. But he still cornered me in an empty hallway right after morning exercises. You hiding from me? I shook my head. I kept my gaze level with his shoulder, not daring to look into those aggressively dark eyes. You haven't said a single word to me since that night. You won't even ride in the same car as me anymore. He let out a short, humorless laugh. How long have you even known him? And you're really willing to go this far for his sake? I sighed when I heard him bring up Tony. I still didn't want him misunderstanding Tony and going after him. This has nothing to do with Tony. You just can't accept me. He finished for me. My silence was as good as an answer. In that long, strained standoff, it was Jason who finally backed down. Fine. If you say it's not about him, then it's not. I won't push you to decide anything right now. Just pretend I never said any of that. His voice dropped. I couldn't help looking up. He bent slightly to meet my height, his eyes full of compromise. Just ride in the car again in the mornings, okay? It's too cold out. A gust of wind swept past, and the temperature around us dropped another notch. I'm weak when it comes to the cold, and have absolutely no backbone about it. I gave a soft little nod. Okay. And Jason really did do exactly what he'd said he never brought up that night again. We seemed to slip back into how we used to be. Or maybe it was only on the surface, waiting to crack open someday. Tony was exactly that catalyst. He looked as clear and bright as his name suggested, but only on the surface. The finals of the school basketball tournament were between our class and Jason's. I was short, so I sat in the front row of the stands. Tony was playing too. He took off his warm-up jacket and set it on the seat beside me, smiling. Wait for me to bring you a gold medal. He lifted a hand like he was going to ruffle my hair. I instinctively leaned away and smiled. Good luck, bring honor to the class. He paused for a second, but his expression didn't change. Yeah, even so, I knew the championship would still go to Jason's class. They'd been first place every year, and he was always their number one. Tony headed toward the court, and only then did I glance toward the burning stair not far away. Jason was caught completely off guard when our eyes met. He must have seen my whole conversation with Tony. Without a hint of emotion, he lowered his gaze, strapped on his wrist guards, and walked onto the court. From the first half to the second, the score widened with every three-pointer Jason sank. He practically slayed the entire game on his own. Every time the ball went through the net, a wave of shrill screams erupted from the stands. I turned to look unsurprising. Most of them were girls, Jason's fangirls. I propped my chin on one hand and watched the black-haired boy in the red jersey on the court. He really did shine out there. But soon after, two defenders started marking him exclusively. One of them was Tony. Jason could barely get a shot in. The score tightened again. A pass came his way. Just as he tried to dodge between the two defenders, Tony suddenly went down hard. The game stopped. I heard someone from our class immediately shout, "Jason pushed him." "What the hell are you talking about?" Jason's teammates yelled back, scaring the other side. Tony whispered something to one of the players, and after hearing it, the guy walked straight toward me. "Isabel, Tony hurt his leg. Could you help him get to the infirmary? We still have to finish the game." With things said that bluntly, I couldn't exactly say, why not find someone else? The closer we got to the court, the louder the arguing between the teams became. But from start to finish, I didn't hear Jason say a word. "Thanks, Isabel," Tony said, as he braced a hand on my shoulder and slowly stood up. I shook my head with a small smile. "It's fine." Jason, who'd been silent this whole time, suddenly walked over. His gaze slid over Tony's hand on my arm, then settled on Tony's ankle. "That bad? You can't even walk." Tony seemed unable to meet Jason's eyes. He lowered his head and mumbled, "It's fine. You probably didn't mean to." Jason's lips curled. People roll their ankles all the time in basketball. Then, lightly, "Since you're saying I caused it, I'll fix it for you right now." I felt Tony's shoulder flinch beside me. Jason actually crouched down, clearly about to grab his ankle. Tony panicked, stumbling back to avoid him. And that's when I saw it with my own eyes. He really was hurt. His face twisted, in real pain, not faking. I grabbed his arm so he wouldn't fall the other way. Faced with Jason's mean streak, I felt utterly helpless. Watching him lean against the hoop post, with his arms folded, laughing, I looked up at him once. He met my gaze, eyes narrowing in irritation. "So you think I did it too?" I didn't reply. I just helped Tony toward the infirmary. Behind us came Jason's derisive snort. "Weak." Tony sat while the school nurse applied medicine. "He's not your brother, right?" he suddenly asked. I nodded. "Our parents know each other. I stay at his place." Tony grunted as if it didn't matter, then smoothly changed the subject. "I've heard of him. Good looking. Lots of girls like him." Then he shifted tone. "But honestly, looks and money don't mean anything. Not compared to having a good personality. Like Jason, he's got plenty of stories about fighting. He probably has some kind of personality issue. Isabel, when you deal with him, Tony." I cut him off with a single question. During the game, was it really Jason who pushed you? He went silent immediately. The sunlight outside lit up the momentary panic in his eyes. But he recovered fast, shrugged, and forced a smile. Who else? You think I'd fall on my own? I told him plainly that I didn't know. Even if it was unlikely, I couldn't help having doubts. Jason was rebellious and reckless. But in terms of character, after knowing him this long, I didn't believe he was the type to play dirty. After the nurse left, Tony exhaled shakily and called my name. He gave a stuttering confession. When I turned him down, he stayed silent for a long time. Then he asked, emotion unreadable, because of Jason. I shook my head and told him directly and apologetically, I don't like you. It wasn't until much later that I realized. From the beginning, I had already separated Jason from everyone else. He was different to me. Even when I first rejected Tony, I didn't actually say, I don't like you. I thought he would drop it after that clear rejection. I didn't expect him to pull the same stunt again. In that game, Jason was ultimately ruled to have pushed Tony and was taken off the court. But since the score gap was still huge, Jason's class still won the championship. Jason must have thought I believed he pushed Tony too, because he grew even quieter around me. Even so, he still covered for my carelessness, sending someone to bring his umbrella to my class on rainy mornings, asking the driver to warm up the car early at night. And the real chance for us to break the ice was Tony. First you push people at the basketball game, and now you're ganging up to jump me, huh, Jason? Right after Saturday makeup classes, I heard a voice coming from a nearby alley. Tony's voice. I walked over slowly. Just as I reached the entrance, Tony collapsed right in front of me. His face twisted in pain as he looked up. Belle. Covered in mud, and looking exhausted. He really did look like he'd just been beaten up. He pushed himself upright and staggered toward me with a strained smile. I'm fine. Right then, a soft laugh sounded behind him. Jason's black baseball cap cast a shadow over the upper half of his face, but the faint curve of his lips was ice cold. The guys beside him glared holes into Tony. Your mom told us and Jason to come out here. You're the one who showed up asking for a fight, weren't you? We didn't lay a finger on you. What you playing at? Throwing yourself on the ground. Tony ignored them, clutching his arm, brows twisted in real pain. Jason lifted his chin slightly, raising his eyes to me, but his words were directed at Tony. Seeing how hard you're working at this, it'd feel rude if I didn't throw a punch or two. He started walking over, his long fingers curled tight, knuckles pale, but something else caught my attention, a different color. Tony stood beside me like he was sure he wouldn't be hit, and he wasn't. I took 2 steps forward and grabbed Jason. Let go. He didn't look at me. His voice was indifferent, with a hint of something tiny and wounded. I tugged lightly at his sleeve. Your hand's already hurt. Why are you still trying to fight? The air froze. All eyes snapped to me. I held his sleeve and glanced back at Tony twice. I've known him long enough to understand him better than that. Jason wasn't someone who'd do something and deny it. And that was as good as exposing Tony's lie for the second time. Maybe the first time I wasn't sure. But now, seeing Jason's reaction, the last bit of doubt vanished. The alley emptied out with Tony's silent retreat. In the end, only Jason and I remained. You understand me? His tone carried a teasing lilt. I ignored him and tugged him toward a nearby bench. Then I went off to buy some medicine. The moment I'd glimpsed his hand earlier, I'd noticed that big patch of bruising. I lowered my eyes and applied the ointment, the dark purple bruise strangely harsh to look at. How'd you do this? My hands automatically softened. He leaned back, letting out a low, lazy hum of a laugh. That brat saw I was about to take the ball and rammed straight into me. I couldn't dodge, so we fell together and I twisted it. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Why bother? He snorted. A moment later, he spoke again, tone airy. When he threw himself on you pretending to be some weak little victim, if I'd told you I didn't push him, would you have believed me? I paused, lifting my head to look at him seriously. Why would you think I wouldn't believe you? He looked back, speechless. A breeze swept past. Lifting the loose hair by my ear, Jason pulled off his cap and set it over my head, blocking my eyes. If you don't like me, then don't look at me like that. Bandit much? Not even letting people look at him. Another month passed. The northern autumn rains grew colder each time. By then, I was already used to this version of Jason, occasionally tossing out random, inexplicable lines. It wasn't until he later pulled me into his arms fair and square that I realized this had all been his slow boil strategy. Our class had PE at the same time as Jason's. That day, it happened to be the first day of my period. My stomach hurt so much I couldn't stand. My deskmate helped me ask for leave. During PE, I was the only one in the classroom, slumped limply over my desk. I didn't even notice someone walk in until a warm cup was pushed into my hands. Jason stood in front of me, hands shoved into his pockets. He jerked his chin. "Drink! What is it?" I blinked at the unfamiliar liquid inside. "Rock sugar red date tea. Just cooked. Drink it while it's hot." I looked up at him and noticed the wet strands of black hair dripping over his forehead and the damp patches on his clothes. I glanced toward the window. It was pouring outside. The gym was already far from our building, not to mention he'd made an extra trip to buy this. "You don't know how to use an umbrella?" I asked quietly. He froze, unusually flustered. Forgot. Later, my deskmate told me Jason had rushed out of the gym the second he learned I wasn't feeling well, like he didn't even notice the downpour. I sipped the tea, the warmth radiating all the way to my chest, touching a place I'd never reached before. The feeling people call having your heart skip. I handed him a tissue. "Wipe your hair." Jason immediately pushed his luck, plopping himself down on someone else's desk. "You wipe it for me." I'm not doing it. Like I was going to indulge his nonsense. I tossed the tissue beside him and turned back to my seat. Jason didn't move it, just left it lying there. The window in our classroom was broken, letting in cold gusts of wind. His wet clothes chilled quickly. I really had no idea what to do with this idiot. "Take off your jacket." I walked back toward him. Jason arched a brow, giving me a look full of implications. From unzipping to slipping off his jacket, every move was slow and borderline indecent. Anyone who didn't know better would think he was about to do something else entirely. I snatched his jacket away and tossed my own into his arms. "I know you can't fit into mine, so just drape it over yourself to block the wind." Before he could react, I grabbed a tissue and started wiping his face at random. The second I tried to pull my hand back, he caught it and pulled me closer. His eyes locked on mine, then slowly dropped to the lower half of my face. At this distance, isn't it kind of inappropriate not to kiss? I panicked, slapped a hand over my mouth, and shoved him out of the classroom. Back then, I had no idea he'd turn out to be a complete kissing maniac. Jason's brilliant idea of running into the rain like an idiot ended with him burning up at 39.4 degrees. Because of that, Mrs. Smith even called in to excuse him for a day. After school that afternoon, I packed my bag faster than I ever had in my life. The second the bell rang, I bolted out of the building. I'd been worrying about his fever all day and just wanted to get home early to see if he needed anything. But before I even put my bag down, I walked in to find Jason coming downstairs to get water. I opened my mouth to ask, "Stay away from me." He frowned hard. I froze, completely failing to understand why his mood had flipped so suddenly. "I just wanted to ask if you're feeling any better." I'd felt guilty about him getting sick. Jason didn't look at me. He just filled a glass and headed back upstairs with a grunt. My head dropped as I stared at my toes, feeling both sad and lost. What was this, some kind of emotional roulette? The next day, he insisted on going back to school. Mask on, straight into the passenger seat. Didn't say a word. Same thing for 2 days straight. By the third afternoon, I got a call from Mrs. Smith. She said Jason forgot his medicine, and she couldn't reach him by phone. So she asked me to pass the message along. Most students had already gone home for lunch. As I walked toward his building, I wondered what I'd do if he wasn't there. Coincidentally, the moment I reached the entrance, I spotted him, back turned to me, and a girl standing right in front of him, smiling bright as spring. "Jerk!" I froze. No idea what they were talking about. When the girl's smile faded, and she finally left, Jason turned and met my eyes head on. He lifted a brow lazily and walked over. "Came to see me?" I kept my face blank as I relayed his mother's message, then turned to leave. He caught my arm. I exploded instantly and yanked hard. "Don't touch me!" His expression didn't change, still lazy as ever. "Who pissed you off this bad?" Yeah. The words spilled out before I could stop myself. "I'm just moody, okay? That girl was gentle. Go find her." The second I said it, I realized what I'd done. The air went still. Embarrassment flooding every inch of the hallway. And that embarrassment hit its peak when Jason let out a low, knowing laugh. His smile was annoyingly deep. Then he asked the most soul-crushing question on earth. "Are you jealous?" I pretended not to hear, and kept trying to shove his hand off. Jason didn't press, he simply scooped me up by the waist and carried me toward a secluded fake rock corner of the garden. He pressed me onto the stone ledge and boxed me in with his arms. Why are you mad? I shot up like a cat getting its tail stepped on. I'm not mad. Why would I be mad? What reason do I even have? Jason laughed out loud, brushing his fingers over my cheek. How are you this cute? I dodged his touch and pushed against his shoulder. Put me down! Instead, he leaned in even closer. His face hovered right in front of mine. You saw me talking to another girl and got jealous. I was about to explode. No! I said I wasn't. The rest of my sentence was swallowed by his lips. A completely unannounced, clumsy first kiss. Jason's rough aggression slowly softened. My head was spinning, forced to keep up. When he finally pulled back slightly, I gasped for air. He thumbed the corner of my eye. You cried from a kiss. Shut up! He wiped the shine off my lips, voice absolutely certain. Belle, you like me. A wave of humiliation hit me so hard. I sniffled and croaked out. Jerk! Jason stared, bewildered. Me? He thought I was upset about that girl. I don't even know her. I never talked to her. I awkwardly complained about how weird he'd been while sick. Jason froze for 2 seconds before letting out a short laugh. I told you to stay away because I didn't want to infect you. Same with sitting in the front seat. His hand curled around the back of my neck, tone turning dangerous. Ungrateful little thing. I still tugged at his mistakes. Couldn't you have said it properly? Why'd you have to act like that? He apologized without hesitation, then bent down to kiss my cheek, whispering, It's my first time liking someone. I've got no experience. Whatever you don't like, I'll change. Just don't be mad at me, Belle. I hated seeing him discouraged. So I grabbed his shirt, pulled him down a little, and kissed the corner of his lips. Fine, you're forgiven. We sat on that fake mountain rock and talked for ages. He told me how he first realized he liked me, and complained about how irritated he'd been seeing me get close to Tony. After we got together, Jason turned into a full-blown kissing demon. After school, he'd drag me somewhere empty and kiss me forever. I had nothing to say to that. From the beginning, I'd clearly rejected Tony. Tony let out a long breath. All right, I know what I need to do. He stepped closer. Can I hug you? Friend hug. Before I could answer, he leaned in. I pushed him away hard. I hated unfamiliar touches. Unfortunately, Jason must have gotten impatient waiting for me upstairs and came looking just in time to see this scene. Great. Now he was definitely going to be mad again. His expression was already stormy. I rushed over before he could do anything. Let's go home, okay? Tony just smiled, unfazed. I only came to say goodbye. Relax, I'm not competing with you. Jason gave a short laugh, eyes full of arrogant disdain. Compete? With what? I dragged Jason away. That night, he sat me on his desk, room dark except for moonlight slanting through the window. He pinched my chin and leaned close, but didn't kiss. Belle, kiss me. Kiss me properly, and I'll let the whole thing go today. Face burning, I squeezed my eyes shut and lunged toward his lips. Jason tilted his head away, looking unbearably smug. Don't be perfunctory. Got it? I was on the verge of crying from frustration, but he didn't ease up at all. Jason didn't rush, just kept brushing his thumb over my lips, again and again. Light, teasing, unbearably intimate. Compared to kissing, this sticky tension was torture. I braced my hands on his shoulders, closed my eyes, and leaned in slowly, heart pounding like thunder. Jason didn't respond, so I forced myself to pry past his teeth, doing it the way he wanted. But when I tried to pull back, he trapped me, kissing hard, hot, and relentless. I always thought we'd hidden it well from everyone. Only after graduation did we tell our parents. Mr. Smith had been too busy with work to notice anything. Mrs. Smith, however, when Jason announced we were together, Mrs. Smith was on the sofa watching some dramatic soap opera. She cracked melon seeds, nodded and said, "Oh," didn't even look up. Jason frowned. "That's it?" "I already knew," she said. "Since the day Belle moved in, I knew this would happen sooner or later. I'd be shocked only if you two didn't end up together." She glanced at her son. "Shocked at your incompetence." Jason's face turned pitch black. I couldn't help it, I burst out laughing. Finally, someone who could keep him in line. Jason looked carefree, but he held grudges like nobody else. Tony, someone, long forgotten by time. I didn't expect Jason to still have a bone to pick with him, even 7 years later, at the class reunion. Jason and I had been married 3 years. He dragged me to get the certificate, basically right after graduation. The night we got the invitation, I mentioned it. Your class reunion. I nodded. Everyone's going? I didn't catch his subtext and nodded again. Everyone. He repeated. Sir, what are you fishing for? What's wrong? I looked at him. Jason's expression was complicated, but in the end he didn't say anything. The next morning I was picking out clothes. I'd just pulled out a dress when a voice behind me drawled. You dare wear a dress in this temperature? I blinked. It's midsummer. What else am I supposed to wear? He clicked his tongue, annoyed, and didn't respond. I glanced at the dress. It did feel a bit much. When I hung it back, Jason's face visibly relaxed. Then he saw the next dress I picked and instantly went dark again. I ignored his inexplicable mood, but once this young master started acting up, he never stopped. A moment later, he wandered over while I was doing my makeup. With this smog, makeup won't help. Just wear a mask. I dropped my brush and stared at him. I'll have to take the mask off when I get there. What's wrong with you? Just say it. He fidgeted, irritation written all over his face. After ages, he finally muttered, Tony's going too. I blinked, needing 2 seconds to remember who he was. I opened our class group. Yeah, he's going. Jason finally found his reason to go off. Keep your distance from him. That guy used to cling to you. Don't forget how he acted all innocent back then. I cut him off. If you're that worried, just come with me. Jason went dead silent, then immediately started changing clothes. A man who barely wore suits even at work put on a custom-tailored one today. I swear, he wasn't this handsome even on our wedding day. That's how much of a threat Tony was. How do I look? He raised a brow. He looked incredible. But, seeing me hesitate, he froze mid-cuff adjustment. Not good? I finally asked the real question. Aren't you hot? He let out a cold laugh. No. Fine. Let him be. At the reunion, a bunch of people gasped when they saw me walk in with Jason. I noticed Tony had brought his wife. I shot Jason a sidelong glare. He didn't look the least bit guilty, still pretending to be all high and mighty. Someone asked, Mr. Jason, when did you and Belle get together? Jason smiled, but his answer was serious. The moment I first saw her at 17. He said it was love at first sight, but teenage pride made him too rebellious to admit it back then. Not until I almost liked someone else did he finally crack, I added behind him. Same for me. The first time I saw him at 17, I still remember that day. Him walking down the stairs in a black hoodie, standing in the backlight, saying his name in that quiet voice. Jason. And right then, I'd put him in a category completely separate from everyone else. On one side of the galaxy were the crowd. On the other side was Jason.